"They tried to extinguish you," Edmund whispered, his husky voice vibrating against Prudence's chest as he held her chin with a delicacy that starkly contrasted his brutal nature. "Because your eyes see the sins they try to hide." Morning light spilled into the cavern where they had spent 2 days lost to the world, and for the first time in 25 years, someone looked directly at her scarred face without flinching away. But how had an Omega, rejected by all, managed to save the terror of the North? Leave a like and comment where you're watching to ensure you don't miss a single story. Snow fell mercilessly upon the Raven's Peak Pass Road, each flake a silent verdict on the fate awaiting Prudence. No tears were shed within the limousine carrying her to oblivion, only the resigned silence of a woman who had learned, over 25 years of existence, that her very presence was an aesthetic offense to the refined world of nobility. The limousine's interior reeked of mold and abandonment, as if the vehicle itself knew it transported someone disposable. Prudence caressed the rough skin of her left cheek, where the red, scaly marks that medicine called the kiss of the pair had disfigured her features since childhood. The scars stretched from the corner of her eye to her chin, a constellation of imperfection that made it impossible for any suitor to look upon her for more than mere seconds. She was not being sent to a sacred convent to find peace in prayer, as her father had publicly announced. The truth, whispered by the servants with pity in their eyes, was far grimmer. The Sentinel Peaks Retreat was a sanitarium nestled in the frigid mountains where noble families concealed their imperfect kin, leaving them to perish far from the scrutinizing gaze of the court. It was a place from which no one ever returned, where the shame of the aristocracy was buried alive. The driver, a man of few words with battle scars etched upon his face, had not uttered a single word to her throughout the 12-hour journey. To him, she was merely another unwanted burden, like the sacks of spoiled grain he occasionally transported for disposal. The stark difference was that Grain felt no pain. Prudence closed her eyes, trying to recall the last time anyone had spoken to her as if she were a real person. It had been 3 months prior, when she had stumbled upon the old gardener tending to the roses in the palace gardens. He had commented on how imperfect flowers sometimes bore the sweetest fragrance, unknowingly offering a balm to a wounded soul. Yet destiny, ever cruel and ironic in her life, harbored plans far grander than mere frozen isolation in the mountains. A deafening detonation shattered the night when mercenaries, no common brigands, obliterated the armored limousine's front wheel, with a precision that bespoke meticulous planning. The vehicle violently careened into the forest abyss, tearing itself apart against ancient trees like a shattered plaything. The pain was immediate and overwhelming. Prudence felt her left arm snap beneath the crushing debris, and the metallic tang of blood filled her mouth. The coppery scent beckoned predators. She could hear distant howls echoing through the dark forest. Jedediah Jed Stone, the security driver, had perished on impact, his neck twisted at an impossible angle. But Prudence did not succumb to panic. Her mind, honed by years of solitary study within her father's dusty library, began to calculate. She knew these forests from the ancient maps she had diligently studied, aware that the nocturnal wind blew from the northeast during this season. She dragged herself from the wreckage, her fractured arm dangling uselessly by her side, and began to move against the wind to mask her scent from the wild Lycans already following the blood trail. It was then, stumbling amidst the snow-laden trees, that she found him. Not a man, but a living mountain of muscle and fur, black as a moonless night. A Lycan of mythical proportions lay fallen in the clearing, so immense it reached an adult man's shoulder even in repose. A silver spear, forged with ancient runes and shimmering with a sinister light, was plunged deep into his right flank. Golden blood, the indelible mark of pure Lycans, formed a growing crimson pool upon the pristine snow. It was the legendary Lycan King Edmund, the terror of the north, ambushed on the same accursed road. His golden eyes, even blurred by agony and the silver's venom, radiated an authority that made the very air around him thrum with primal power. Any Omega's instinct would have been to flee the predatory aura of an alpha of such formidable stature, especially one renowned for his brutality in battle. But Prudence had endured a lifetime of rejection from men far smaller and less perilous. Death by a Lycan king seemed almost honorable compared to the slow decay awaiting her in the sanitarium. Driven by a stubborn compassion that had always been her social undoing, she knelt in the snow beside the injured creature. "Hold still," she whispered, her voice trembling more from the frigid air than from fear. "I know what to do." With trembling hands, she not only extracted the spear, an act demanding every ounce of her limited strength, but then applied the rare moon petal moss she had secreted in her gown's pocket. It was a special variety she had secretly gathered during her solitary wanderings, diligently studying its healing properties within the forbidden tomes of the library. The moss possessed neutralizing properties against metallic poisons, a sacred knowledge she had gleaned from an ancient elven lore. The colossal Lycan watched her as she worked, his golden eyes studying every movement with a piercing intensity that quickened her breath. There was a keen intelligence there, an acute awareness that made her feel exposed in a way entirely unrelated to her appearance. The rapidly approaching snowstorm forced them to seek refuge. Edmund, too weak to maintain his lupine form, was compelled to shift back to his human shape to conserve healing energy. The transformation was a terrifying and beautiful spectacle. Bones reorganizing, muscles contracting, fur receding until it revealed a man of equally impressive proportions. Even naked and wounded, he radiated a presence that made the air feel thick with power. He stood at least 6.5 feet tall, with shoulders broad as tree trunks and arms scarred from countless battles. His face was sculpted as if by the very gods themselves. A strong jawline, an aquiline nose, and those golden eyes that seemed to pierce through anyone's soul. Yet the silver venom had temporarily blinded him. They found shelter in a narrow, damp cave, deep enough to shield them from the blizzard that now roared outside with primal fury. In the absolute darkness of that confined space, through 48 hours of incessant storm, the rigid social dynamics of the Lycan world were utterly suspended. Unable to see Prudence's disfigured face, Edmund heard only her voice. And what a voice it was. Melodious, educated, imbued with an intelligence that astonished him. They wasted no time on courtly trivialities or empty remarks about the weather. Instead, they plunged into profound discussions about the ethics of leadership, the moral challenges of governing creatures with primal instincts, ancient botany, and political philosophy. "Do you believe," Edmund asked on the second night, his voice hoarse echoing off the stone walls, "that a king has the right to keep secrets from his people if those secrets protect them from a brutal truth?" Prudence considered the question carefully, adjusting the small fire she maintained between them. "I believe truth is like bitter medicine. It may be painful to swallow, but a lie is always more toxic in the long run. A people unaware of their own dangers cannot properly defend themselves." Her answer profoundly impressed him. He was accustomed to the empty, calculated flatteries of the kingdom's most beautiful females, women who agreed with his every word not out of conviction, but political ambition. Here was someone who challenged him intellectually, who offered perspectives he had never dared to consider, never imagined existed. Edmund and Prudence deepened their connection in the cave, each confessing their profound sense of isolation and the heavy burdens they carry. His, the relentless hypocrisy of the crown. Hers, the societal shame of her existence. Prudence reveals her vast intellect, honed through years spent translating ancient texts from her father's forbidden library, culminating in her recitation of an ancient Lycan poem that speaks to the solitude of power. Edmund, struck by her perfect translation and the depth of her forbidden knowledge, yearns to learn more. Prudence smiled for the first time in years, a genuine smile, not the forced facade she wore at court. "I've discovered that many of history's monsters were merely misunderstood people. That true beauty has always been defined by those in power, not by nature. That the greatest cures came from plants others considered weeds." Edmund leaned closer, momentarily forgetting his temporary blindness. "Tell me of these cures." And she spoke. For hours, She described how she had developed treatments for the ailments afflicting the poor, using ancient knowledge combined with careful observation. How she had crafted salves that alleviated chronic pain, using ingredients growing wild in abandoned gardens. How she had learned that true healing came not merely from medicaments, but from being seen and heard as a person. "You are a healer," Edmund said with mounting admiration. "A true healer, not merely one who follows medical protocols." "I am one who understands pain," she gently corrected him. "And when you understand pain intimately, you develop compassion that transcends the superficial." There was a long pause, heavy with unspoken meaning. "Edmund," she said hesitantly, using his name for the first time, "may I ask you a personal question? After saving my life and keeping me sane for 2 days, I believe you have earned that right. What do you truly want, not as a king but as a man?" The question struck him like a physical blow. No one had ever asked him that. Everyone assumed that being a king was all one could ever desire. "I want..." He paused, grappling with words he had never spoken aloud. "I want to have a conversation like this, with someone who sees me as Edmund, not as a crown. I want to wake beside someone who isn't calculating how to use our conversation for political gain. I want..." His voice broke slightly. "I want to not feel perpetually alone, even when surrounded by hundreds." Prudence reached out in the dark and found his hand. It was the first time anyone had touched her with tenderness in years. "I understand," she whispered. "I know that solitude." An overwhelming spiritual intimacy burgeoned between them in that dark cavern, a connection that utterly transcended the physical, and was based purely on the meeting of two wounded souls who had finally found understanding. It was something Edmund had never experienced, and that Prudence had only ever dreamed possible. When the storm finally ceased on the morning of the 3rd day, allowing the sun's golden light to spill into the cavern, Edmund's vision gradually returned. He blinked several times, adjusting to the brightness, and turned to finally thank the woman who had saved his life and whose mind had utterly captivated him. The initial shock was inevitable and brutal. Lycan society valued physical perfection above almost everything: strength, symmetry, the capacity to bear strong offspring. Prudence's face was, to any casual observer, a detailed map of suffering and imperfection. The scars stretched in irregular patterns, some still vivid red and inflamed, others already faded to white with age. Prudence saw the shock in his golden eyes and immediately recoiled, bracing herself for the habitual rejection that had defined every social interaction of her adult life. She was already mentally preparing for the disgust she would see on his face, for the cruel words that would surely follow. But Edmund did not look away. Instead, he approached slowly, as if she were a wounded animal that might bolt at any sudden movement. His giant, calloused hand, etched with scars from countless battles, reached for her chin with a delicacy that dramatically contrasted with his fearsome reputation for brutality. He wasn't looking at the scars. He was looking directly into her eyes. And then he saw. They were a deep, impossible-to-ignore violet, flecked with golden threads that seemed to capture and reflect light like rare jewels. The legendary Eyes of Truth, an exquisitely rare genetic trait linked to the ancient moon priestesses, women who possessed the supernatural ability to see through social masks directly into the soul's true intent. "My gods," he murmured, his voice laden with reverence and sudden comprehension. "They tried to erase you because your eyes see the sins they try to hide." The return to the capital, the citadel, was not the immediate fairy tale that romantic stories often paint. Edmund, a shrewd politician beyond being a fierce warrior, knew that declaring Prudence his mate immediately would be a death warrant for her. The court would tear her apart before they could even blink. Instead, he introduced her as his personal healer, a position of considerable prestige, yet one that placed her under the constant scrutiny and venomous envy of the established nobles. It was a cunning move that granted her official protection, while allowing her to prove her worth in other ways. The 6 months that followed were a political and social battlefield more perilous than any physical war. Prudence's mere presence in the royal palace stirred waves of repulsion and malicious whispers that echoed through the marble corridors like malevolent ghosts. Mornings began with looks of disgust from the servants who delivered her breakfast. She overheard fragments of whispered conversations. How can he even look at that? It must be sorcery. What a disgrace to the kingdom. Lady Serena Beaumont, a high-born beta and the universally accepted favorite to become queen consort, had refined Prudence's social destruction into an exquisite art. She disseminated calculated rumors that Prudence was a forest witch, maintained out of misguided pity, that she had employed dark sorcery to bewitch the royal mind, that she was a spy from rival dominions sent to corrupt the royal lineage. But Serena Beaumont was subtle in her cruelty. During a formal dinner, she inquired loudly, ensuring all overheard, "Lady Prudence, is it true you hide in the shadows during the day? I've heard the sunlight makes your features even more visible." Prudence, seated at the royal advisor's table with a dignified posture perfected over years of humiliation, calmly replied, "I prefer to work in the infirmaries during daylight hours, Lady Serena. I've found many of the ailing feel more comfortable receiving medical care when there are no crowds observing their suffering." The response was diplomatically flawless, transforming what was intended as a humiliation into a testament of profound compassion. Yet Prudence knew each small victory only sharpened her enemy's fierce resolve. On another occasion, Serena Beaumont accidentally spilled red wine on Prudence's new gown during an important reception. "Oh, how clumsy I am," she declared with feigned concern. "But perhaps the stain improves the overall appearance?" The court's discreet snickers echoed like sharp blades. Prudence simply smiled and responded, "Stains are easily removed, Lady Serena. Cruel behavior, regrettably, is far harder to cleanse." But far from the court's scrutinizing eyes, Prudence was orchestrating a silent revolution. Using her official position as personal healer and her extensive medical knowledge, she had identified the Crimson Chill, a devastating plague decimating working-class families in the undercurrent districts. A disease royal physicians had completely ignored because it only afflicted disposable people. She worked 16-hour days, often until her own hands bled from preparing remedies. She established makeshift clinics in tavern cellars, trained local midwives in sterilization techniques learned from ancient elven lore, and managed to reduce the infant mortality rate by 40% in just 4 months. Her hands, already marked by facial scars, now bore cuts from preparing medicinal herbs and burns from healing cauldrons. But every child saved, every mother who didn't have to bury her baby, was worth every drop of spilled blood. "The Lady of the Golden Eyes saved us," whispered the mothers whose children had survived thanks to her treatments. "She doesn't care if we're poor or dirty. She sees us as real people." Edmund watched this transformation with growing pride and deep admiration. During council meetings, when nobles complained about wasted resources on the poor, he saw Prudence maintain her composure while defending every life she saved. "Your Majesty," she argued during a tense session, "a dominion is only as strong as its most vulnerable citizens. If we ignore the suffering of the poor, we create not just injustice, but instability. Desperate people become easy prey for enemies promising change." Her logic was impeccable, her compassion genuine, and Edmund felt his respect for her grow daily. He had known her intellectual worth in the cave, but now he saw her moral strength in constant action. The first great obstacle arose when deeper investigations revealed the road attack was neither coincidence nor opportunistic bandits. The silver spear that almost killed Edmund had been forged in Prudence's own father's private smithies. She had not been sent to a convent. Patriarch Elias Thorne had carefully orchestrated a double assassination. The revelation came through a court spy who had infiltrated Thorne's household. The patriarch not only wanted to rid himself of his defective daughter, he had also made secret agreements with Dominion enemies who would benefit from Edmund's death. It was treason in multiple layers. When Edmund confronted Prudence with the evidence, he expected tears, emotional collapse, pleas for revenge. Instead, she stood in silence for long minutes, processing the reality she had always been not only unwanted, but actively hated enough to be targeted for assassination. "I always knew he felt shame for me," she finally said, her voice strangely calm. "But I never imagined that feeling could turn into homicide." Edmund, roaring in fury, wanted immediate execution. The patriarch had tried to assassinate the king. This was clear treason deserving death. But Prudence intervened, placing a small but firm hand on his arm. "A fair trial," she insisted. "If we are to be better than our enemies, we must act with justice, not emotional vengeance." It was at that exact moment, before the Council of Elders met in emergency session, that Edmund felt the mate bond snap in his soul, with a violence that almost brought him to his knees. It was not awakened by Prudence's physical beauty, but by the moral beauty of her justice, by the strength of character that preferred righteousness over personal revenge. He roared to the entire council, his voice filling the stone room with primal authority. "Let anyone who questions this woman's worth challenge me first. She is worth more than all of you combined." It was a declaration of protection and claim that echoed throughout the entire palace. Yet, Edmund's public acceptance as her mate brought forth unforeseen dangers. During the winter solstice celebration, Lady Serena Beaumont, manipulating archaic laws of lineage purity that hadn't been invoked for centuries, demanded Prudence undergo the mirror test, a magical ritual designed to reveal the true nature of a Lycan soul. Serena was convinced the mirror would reveal a corrupted, weak, or dark magic-tainted soul. It would be the perfect justification to exile Prudence and restore the natural social order. The Mirror of Truth was an ancient magical artifact, larger than a full-grown man, forged by the first Lycan sorceresses, and imbued with powers that transcended modern comprehension. When a Lycan gazed upon its silvered surface, it revealed not their physical appearance, but the true nature of their soul. Prudence was compelled to stand before the mirror in the great hall, the entire court watching expectantly. Serena smiled with cruel confidence, certain she had finally found the tool to destroy her rival. When Prudence looked directly into the magical artifact, what transpired left all in absolute shock. The mirror did not reflect her scarred face. Instead, the entire hall was inundated by a dazzling silver light that emanated from the mirror's very surface. The light was so brilliant, many shielded their eyes, and when it finally receded, all witnessed something impossible. The scars on Prudence's face were glowing, not as wounds or deformities, but as ancient protective runes, each mark revealing itself as part of a complex magical pattern inscribed upon her skin since birth. The kiss of the pair, the ailment that had disfigured her face, was in truth an elaborate magical barrier, placed by her deceased mother to fully suppress her natural royal Omega aura. The royal Omega lineage had been considered extinct for over 200 years. They possessed unique powers, the ability to calm the battle-induced madness of alphas, to command obedience through their pure voice, to see through deceptions and manipulations. So rare and powerful were they, that they were often assassinated by those who feared their potential. Prudence's mother, discerning the emerging gifts in her infant daughter, had sacrificed her own life force to create the runic barrier, hiding Prudence in plain sight as a defective Omega to protect her from forces that would kill her if they discovered her true nature. The collapse of the magical barrier triggered the Knight's second great revelation. For the first time in 25 years, Prudence's true scent, sweet as wild honey, potent as a summer storm, irresistible as magic itself, filled the great hall's air. The reaction was instantaneous and chaotic. Edmund and all the unmarked alphas in the hall were sent into an instinctive frenzy of protection and possession. Their inner wolves roared with the primal need to protect, possess, hide this royal Omega from all other males. The very air seemed to vibrate with pheromones and power. Chaos immediately ensued. 3 lesser alphas simultaneously advanced toward Prudence, their eyes gleaming with animal instinct. Edmund, battling his inner wolf that wanted to seize her and bear her to safety away from all others, had to demonstrate supreme control not to startle her with his intensity. He positioned himself between Prudence and the other males, asserting dominance with brutal yet controlled violence. His snarls echoed through the hall like thunder, and when 2 of the alphas refused to retreat, he hurled them against the marble pillars with enough force to crack the stone. "She is mine," he roared, his voice carrying such alpha power that some of the lesser nobles involuntarily dropped to their knees. "Anyone who dares to touch her dies!" Yet even as he protected her, Edmund could feel his own control slipping. The scent of a royal omega was designed by nature to be irresistible to alpha wolves. It was demanding every ounce of his willpower not to claim her right there in front of everyone. Prudence, overwhelmed by the sudden surge of power, by the intensity of emotions from dozens of wolves responding to her true nature, managed to utter a single word. "Please." That single word, spoken in her true voice, now revealed to carry the underlying tones of the royal command voice, instantly calmed every Lycan in the room. The fighting ceased. The snarls died down. Even Edmund felt his rage recede to manageable levels. However, the removal of the protective runes came at a terrible cost no one had foreseen. Prudence's fragile body, held in magical stasis for 25 years of suppression, could not instantly adjust to the sudden release of such power. Without the barrier that had controlled the flow of her natural magical energy, her system went into complete overload. She collapsed onto the great hall's marble floor, her body convulsing as too much raw magic burned through veins unprepared to channel it. Within minutes, she had fallen into a deep mystical coma, her breathing shallow and erratic. The kingdom's most experienced healers were summoned immediately, but none had ever dealt with anything like this before. Royal Omegas were legend, their powers and vulnerabilities known only through ancient texts that might or might not be accurate. After 3 days of desperate searching, Elder Alara was found in the mountains. She examined Prudence and delivered a devastating verdict. The only thing that could stabilize her magical system and bring her back was the legendary Moonflower. The Moonflower grew only on the highest and most perilous peak of the Shadow Peaks, a realm of constant winter, inhabited by creatures so dangerous that even seasoned warriors utterly shunned it. The peak was known as Mount Acheron because several historical rulers had perished attempting to reach its summit. Edmund, the king who had never abandoned his throne even during wars, who always dispatched others to handle dangerous missions, made a decision that utterly shocked his entire council. "I will go," he announced. "Your Majesty, this is madness," his chief beta protested. "You cannot abandon the kingdom. Send warriors. Send me. But you cannot risk—" "She risked everything to save me when she was but a stranger," Edmund interrupted him, his voice carrying ultimate authority. "I shall not be less courageous than she was." He entrusted the kingdom to his most dependable beta, departing alone, without royal guards or fanfare. It was a journey of penance and a testament to his love, where he would confront not only physical perils, but his inner demons and the gnawing fear of losing the sole soul who had truly seen him. The journey to the Shadow Peaks took 2 weeks across increasingly treacherous terrain. Edmund traveled in wolf form whenever possible to conserve heat, yet the cold in the mountains was supernatural. Not merely winter, but a complete absence of warmth. The first 3 nights were the most brutal. The cold sliced through his skin like ice blades, and even in his lupine form he trembled uncontrollably. There was no adequate shelter, only shallow caves offering minimal protection against winds that seemed to carry the lamentations of the departed. On the 4th night, he encountered the first true perils of the Shadow Peaks. A pack of phantom wolves, creatures the size of horses, with eyes that gleamed like dead embers, encircled him as he attempted to rest. These were no ordinary wolves, but corrupted spirits, trapped within these mountains by ancient magic. The battle was fierce and eerily silent. Edmund fought in his human form, employing claws and fangs against adversaries that scarcely appeared solid. They moved like smoke, materializing only at the very instant of attack. When he finally vanquished them, his body was covered in wounds that bled a dark, putrid ooze. He fought through blizzards that would have claimed lesser men, evaded packs of phantom wolves, and scaled cliff faces cloaked in ice so thick his claws barely found purchase. Many times he nearly plunged to his death, only his desperate need to reach Prudence keeping him moving. On the 10th night, exhausted and famished, he discovered strange tracks in the snow, too large for any terrestrial creature. The marks led directly into a mountain crevice that emanated an ominous warmth. Edmund knew he should shun anything generating heat in this accursed place, yet the cold was literally taking his life. Within the fissure, he discovered a cavern warmed by sulfuric vapors bubbling from natural pools. The heat was a blessed respite, but the cost came in the form of horrifying visions. The vapors were hallucinogenic, and throughout the night, Edmund had to battle against images of Prudence dying, of his kingdom being destroyed, of all those he had failed to protect. Upon the summit of Mount Acheron, he found more than just a single flower. There was an entire garden of mystical flora, protected by ancient magic, yet guarded by a creature born of nightmares, a rime dragon, a smaller but deadly dragon whose breath could freeze a man to death in seconds. The creature was magnificent and terrifying, scales of cerulean like eternal ice, eyes like diamonds gleaming with malevolent intelligence, and wings that eclipsed the scant light filtering through the perpetual clouds. When it beheld Edmund, it roared, a sound that set distant avalanches rumbling in the neighboring peaks. The battle was brutal and nearly fatal. Edmund fought not with strategy, but with the desperation of a mate striving to save his beloved. The dragon spewed ice that formed crystalline armor around Edmund, forcing him to shatter his icy confines repeatedly. His claws wounded the creature, yet each injury he inflicted resulted in gusts of freezing wind that nearly claimed his life. He sustained wounds that would have felled lesser alphas. A dragon's claw tore his chest from clavicle to sternum. Its icy breath seared his lungs until each gasp was agony. But he eventually vanquished the dragon through a combination of cunning and pure resolve, using the treacherous terrain itself against the creature. The moonflower was beautiful beyond all description. Petals like spun silver that glowed with an inner luminescence, emanating warmth even in the frigid air. When Edmund touched it, he could feel its healing power thrumming through his very bones. But gathering the flower demanded a sacrifice. The mystical garden required a drop of royal blood, draining a portion of his own life force to allow him to carry Prudence's cure. The journey back was even more perilous, for now he was wounded and burdened with a precious treasure. He nearly succumbed to blood loss thrice, only forcing himself onward, because he knew Prudence was fading in his absence. Each step was a battle against unconsciousness, each breath a triumph against the death that relentlessly pursued him. His return to the Citadel, after 3 weeks away, coincided with a coup attempt spearheaded by Lady Serena Beaumont's family. They had exploited the king's absence to seize power, claiming Edmund had abandoned the kingdom to chase a witch and was therefore unfit to rule. When Edmund burst into the royal chambers, injured and half-frozen but clutching the moonflower, he found the palace guards containing his loyal retainers, while Serena's allies ransacked the royal quarters, searching for anything that could legitimize their power grab. The conspirators had prepared meticulously. They possessed forged documents alleging Edmund had perished in the mountains, proclamations already drafted declaring Serena as regent, and even a new royal seal crafted to authorize their decrees. It was painfully clear this coup had been plotted long before Edmund's departure. Prudence chose that exact moment to awaken from her mystical coma, still weak from weeks of magical imbalance, yet now, with her royal Omega powers fully awakened, she did not need to physically fight. When Serena's supporters stormed the royal chambers where Prudence was recovering, they found not a helpless invalid, but a force of nature. Serena had entered first, brandishing a ceremonial dagger, her face contorted by ambition and hatred. "Finally," she hissed, "I can end this abomination that has infected our kingdom." But as she neared the bed where Prudence lay, something extraordinary occurred. Prudence opened her eyes, those unique violet eyes of truth that now shimmered with awakened power, and simply commanded, "Kneel." Her voice carried such absolute authority that it transcended rational thought entirely. It was the royal command voice, a power that had lain dormant for 25 years, now unleashed in its full, ancient magnitude. All the Lycans in the room, friends and foes alike, fell to their knees involuntarily. Serena, who had been mere inches from plunging the dagger into Prudence's heart, found herself prostrate on the marble floor, utterly unable to move against the royal command. Tears streamed down Serena's face, not of sorrow, but of pure terror. For the first time in her life, she was completely defenseless before a power she could neither manipulate nor corrupt. "You will confess," Prudence continued, her voice surging with amplified power, "everything you have wrought to undermine this kingdom. Every lie, every betrayal, every life you jeopardized for ambition." The compulsion proved irresistible. One by one, Lady Serena Beaumont and her conspirators began to confess their crimes: large-scale bribery, treason through secret pacts with enemy kingdoms, conspiracy to assassinate not only Prudence but other nobles who opposed them, plans to sell the kingdom's secrets to hostile nations. Crimes far more heinous than anyone had suspected. It was then that Edmund entered the chamber. Prepared to slay anyone who had threatened Prudence in his absence, he found his enemies kneeling and weeping as they confessed their transgressions to a woman who seemed an avenging angel seated upon the bed, her violet eyes blazing with a power that made the very air vibrate. "I believe," Prudence stated calmly when she saw him, "that we have new prisoners for the dungeons." Edmund remained silent for a long moment, absorbing the profound scene. Then slowly, he approached the bed and extended the moonflower, still shimmering with ethereal silver light, still emanating the potent healing power that had cost him so much to obtain. "For you," he murmured, his voice hoarse with raw emotion and profound exhaustion. "To bring us back." Prudence accepted the flower with trembling hands. The moment her touch met the silvery petals, a wave of vitalizing, healing energy surged through her entire being, finally stabilizing her awakened powers and mending the last effects of 25 years of potent magical suppression. The trial that followed was swift and comprehensive. With the conspirators' own confessions, the evidence of treason was overwhelming and irrefutable. Justice was served, but Prudence insisted on exile instead of execution for most of them. A mercy many noted came from a woman who held every reason to seek bitter vengeance. "Vengeance," she explained to the council when questioned about her clemency, "perpetuates cycles of pain. Justice breaks them." The scars upon Prudence's face did not magically vanish at the culmination of her trials. The runes faded, softening to her natural skin tone. Yet the indelible marks left by 25 years of magical suppression remained. Her face still carried the map of her suffering. Nevertheless, when she was crowned queen beside Edmund in a ceremony that filled the capital's grand cathedral, no one in the rapt crowd perceived the marks as flaws. They saw the woman who had tamed the Wolf King, who had saved the kingdom without raising a blade, who had shown mercy to enemies who had shown her none. On the palace balcony, before thousands of jubilant subjects, Edmund tenderly kissed each mark etched upon her face, beginning with the largest scar that traced from her temple to her chin. "These marks," he proclaimed to the throng, his voice resonating across the entire plaza, "are not blemishes. They are proof that true beauty stems from enduring the unendurable, from choosing kindness when the world offers naught but cruelty, from perceiving truth where others cling to convenient lies." With these profound words, he forever redefined the very standard of beauty for the entire dominion. Scars became insignia of strength. Imperfections transformed into hallmarks of character. True ugliness, selfishness, cruelty, vanity, was banished from the court. The true ugliness had been purged, and what remained was the reign of the eyes of truth. A queen who could see through deceptions, and a king who had learned to value profound truth over superficial appearance. Their dominion flourished under leadership that prioritized substance over superficiality, justice over mere convenience, and unwavering truth over comfortable deceit. And whenever the young were told their saga, it always concluded with the same profound lesson. True beauty does not reside in what can be seen, but in what cannot be hidden when one looks directly into a soul. If you've been captivated by this epic tale of how a rejected Omega ascended to queen through the power of truth and compassion, subscribe for more thrilling Lycan King romances. Activate the notification bell so you don't miss a single story about finding true love beyond superficial beauty. Remember, the most potent magic is seeing someone's true worth when the rest of the world chooses to look away.